It is difficult to imagine modern Hollywood without Bruce Willis, because for decades his presence was more than famous. It was essential. He did not simply play action heroes who ran through explosions with endless confidence. He changed what strength looked like on screen by making it human. Bruce brought vulnerability into blockbuster cinema at a time when action stars were often untouchable. He was tough, yes, but also tired, sarcastic, flawed, and deeply relatable. Audiences didn't only watch him win battles, they watched him endure them. That balance of grit and emotional depth reshaped the modern cinematic hero, making him feel like someone real rather than unreachable. Yet while the world continued celebrating the legend, something subtle was shifting quietly behind the scenes, long before anyone fully understood why. The quiet changes. Before the headlines. Long before public announcements or news stories appeared, Bruce Willis began to pull back in ways that were easy to miss. Film sets grew gentler around him. Dialogue was shortened. Scenes were adjusted. These changes did not spark scandal or controversy. Instead, they sparked care. Directors and crew members adapted instinctively, guided by respect rather than explanation. There were no dramatic confrontations, only quiet recalibration. Those closest to him sensed something deeper than fatigue was happening, but silence became a form of protection. For years, Bruce had given everything to his craft, and now those around him began giving something back: patience. Subtle signs that carried heavy meaning. In the early stages, the signs were small enough to explain away. A missed cue. A pause where words seemed just out of reach. Moments that felt like a thought interrupted mid-flight. On set, accommodations were made carefully. Dialogue broken into smaller sections, more time allowed between takes. Adjustments offered without spectacle. No one wanted concern to become intrusion. At home, however, the shifts carried more weight. Conversations sometimes stalled. Familiar stories were repeated. These moments were not dramatic, but for a family who had always known Bruce as sharp and quick-witted, they were emotionally heavy. Still, love does not begin with panic. It begins with understanding. A family responding with gentleness. Inside the privacy of home, Bruce's family responded not with fear, but with closeness. They listened more carefully. They slowed conversations. They learned to sit with silence instead of rushing to fill it. Emma Heming Willis later reflected on moments when Bruce seemed to chase words he once held effortlessly, hesitations that disrupted familiar rhythms. Those moments were painful, but also intimate, drawing the family closer. Rather than correcting him or making the changes obvious, they offered reassurance through tone, touch, and presence. Humor still surfaced in flashes, like echoes of earlier days, and those moments became treasures rather than expectations. Choosing dignity over speculation, friends noticed changes too, though Bruce remained warm, welcoming, and full of charm in the ways people had always loved. As the pattern became more noticeable, the family made a conscious choice. Bruce's dignity would come first. They would not let curiosity override compassion. They would not allow rumor to define his story. While quietly seeking answers, they resisted the pressure to explain anything publicly. Silence during that time was not avoidance. It was devotion. It was the space they needed to understand what was happening without exposing Bruce to unnecessary scrutiny. When answers finally came, the diagnosis brought clarity and heartbreak at the same time. Learning that Bruce was living with frontotemporal dementia explained years of subtle shifts, changes in language, decision-making, and emotional expression that had once seemed disconnected. For the family, it was not an ending, but a turning point. Doctors helped them understand what the condition meant, how it progressed, and what adjustments would be needed. Knowledge did not erase grief, but it gave it shape. For the first time, uncertainty had a name. seeing the past through a new lens. After the diagnosis, memories resurfaced with new clarity. Conversations that once felt confusing now made sense. Moments of frustration softened into understanding. Emma later shared that once they knew what was happening, the past aligned in ways that were both comforting and devastating. What had once seemed random formed a pattern. While the realization carried sorrow, it also brought peace. There was no longer a need to wonder what had gone wrong. Nothing had gone wrong. Something had simply changed, and change could still be met with love. Building a new rhythm of life. With clarity came intention. The family shifted toward stability, creating routines rooted in calm and familiarity. These changes were not dramatic or performative. They were quiet choices designed to help Bruce feel safe and grounded. Environments were simplified, schedules softened, interactions became slower and more deliberate. Loved ones learned to measure time differently, not by productivity or achievement, but by presence. Each day became less about what was lost and more about what could still be shared. Laughter, music, touch, and the comfort of togetherness. Redefining connection. Those closest to Bruce learned to connect with him in new ways, embracing moments as they came, rather than expecting old patterns. Conversations were allowed to wander. Silence became acceptable. There was a shift from fixing to simply being. One family member reflected that the diagnosis did not close their story, it reshaped it. Every interaction became an act of compassion, every decision a reflection of love. The future was uncertain, but their commitment to face it together remained unwavering. Speaking publicly as one family. When the family eventually chose to speak publicly, they did so as a unified circle. Emma Hemming Willis, Demi Moore, and Bruce's daughters released a joint statement rooted in honesty and care. Their words were clear, measured, and free of sensationalism. They did not seek sympathy, they sought understanding. Their unity sent a powerful message. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Transparency as an act of respect. Their decision to speak openly was not impulsive. It came after long conversations and careful reflection. They understood the weight of sharing something deeply personal in a world that often consumes vulnerability without context. But they also recognized the value of clarity. By addressing the situation directly, they could replace speculation with truth and frame Bruce's story with dignity rather than rumor. Transparency became an act of respect, honoring Bruce fully without minimizing reality. Emma Hemming Willis, stepping forward. As the journey continued, Emma naturally emerged as the family's steady public voice. Balancing advocacy with protection, she spoke with honesty about Bruce's condition while preserving the dignity he deserved. Her words were grounded, human, and clear, transforming fear into purpose. Through her openness, she became an unexpected guide for other families navigating similar challenges. She never spoke for attention. She spoke because understanding mattered. Advocacy born from love. Emma's willingness to share brought visibility to frontotemporal dementia, a condition often misunderstood. Families around the world connected with her words, finding comfort in knowing they were not alone. Messages poured in from caregivers who recognized their own experiences. Emma acknowledged that if sharing their story helped even one family feel less isolated, it was worth it. Through her openness, silence became community, and uncertainty became shared understanding. Strength behind closed doors. At home, Emma's strength took a quieter form. She restructured routines, coordinated medical guidance, and created an environment designed to support Bruce's calm. She encouraged the family to approach each day with patience and flexibility. Yet she never pretended caregiving was easy. She spoke openly about leaning on friends and support systems, reminding others that strength does not mean doing everything alone. A career seen through a new lens. Bruce Willis built his career playing men who ran toward danger, but his diagnosis invited audiences to revisit his legacy differently. Fans began rewatching his films with renewed appreciation, noticing the vulnerability beneath the toughness. What once felt like spectacle now felt like emotional endurance. His characters were never invincible. They were resilient. That distinction became central to how his work was remembered. The everyman hero reconsidered. Bruce was always celebrated as the everyman hero, the cop who wouldn't quit, the lone figure standing against impossible odds. Looking back, those performances revealed something deeper than physical courage. They showed emotional persistence, the ability to endure fear, doubt, and isolation. His strength was never about dominance, it was about relatability. Legacy defined by love. In the end, Bruce Willis's story is not defined by diagnosis, nor solely by the roles that made him famous. It is defined by the people who chose to walk beside him as the world changed. His family's honesty revealed something deeply human, the way love adapts, strengthens, and expands in the face of uncertainty. Their voices reminded us that legacy is not measured only by applause or box office success, but by the courage to face difficult truths together and the grace to hold one another when clarity is hard to find.